Welcome to the History in Focus channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one. To guarantee the public that an outlaw was indeed dead, it became common to photograph bodies right after executions or shootouts. Corpses were placed standing against walls or sitting in chairs before rigor mortis. These images served as proof to the population and were also required to claim bounties. Only after the record was the body buried. Without photography, doubts lingered if the bandit might return, fueling rumors and distrust. This macabre habit turned death into something documented, reinforcing the mix of violence and morbid curiosity that permeated life in the Wild West. One of the strangest cases was Elmer McCurdy, an outlaw shot by police in 1911. His body was not buried immediately. A funeral director embalmed it and began exhibiting it in his establishment. Over time, the mummified corpse was sold and ended up displayed in circuses, fairs, and curiosity museums, traveling for decades as an attraction. Only in 1977, already in an advanced state of decay, was the body identified and buried in Oklahoma. McCurdy's trajectory showed how even death could become public spectacle, making it one of the strangest episodes in Wild West history. Whiskey was a staple in saloons but hardly resembled today's drink. It bore flashy names like 40 Rod, Tarantula Juice, or Taos Lightning, masking strong and dangerous mixes. Many recipes contained strychnine, which attacks the nervous system and can cause fatal convulsions, or turpentine, used as a solvent along with tobacco oil capable of causing severe poisoning. The first sip burned the throat, forcing customers to swallow quickly, not to spit. But soon the stupefying effect spread, plunging men into chemical stupor. Still, rounds were repeated night after night, turning the saloon into a scene of risk, vice, and survival. In saloons, chewing tobacco was such a rooted habit that it turned any environment into something unpleasant. To try to contain the mess, metal spittoons were spread around, but even so, the floor was soaked with saliva mixed with drinks. The constant noise of spitting echoed along with the strong smell that filled the air, composing part of the daily scene. Curiously, it was not limited to bars. Courthouses, hotels, public offices, and even workplaces displayed these containers as if they were mandatory furniture, showing how normalized the practice was, despite the discomfort and evident lack of hygiene. The dirt accumulated in Wild West bars and public spaces was so intense that sawdust scattered on the floor became a common solution. It absorbed spilled drinks, food, saliva, and even bloodstains from fights. The floor quickly turned dark and foul-smelling, forcing employees to replace the sawdust several times a day. Though rudimentary, it was considered an effective practice to keep customers circulating. For patrons, walking over layers of soaked sawdust was part of the saloon experience. Mixed with the smell of tobacco and alcohol, this scene formed the realistic portrait of everyday life in frontier towns. Towns were marked by constant filth. With no garbage collection or sewage systems, the ground accumulated food scraps, human and animal waste, plus carcasses left exposed for days. Wagons, horses, and oxen circulated nonstop, spreading urine and manure that turned streets into muddy, unhealthy ground. The stench was part of daily life, and diseases spread easily in that setting. Still, life went on. Markets, shops, and saloons operated normally amid the filth, revealing how people had adapted to living in precarious hygienic conditions where survival outweighed discomfort. In the Wild West, barber shops went far beyond cutting hair or shaving. They were meeting places where travelers, cowboys, and merchants stopped to rest, chat, and catch up on regional news. Services included reclining chairs, hot towels, strong lotions, shoe shines, cigars for sale, and even attached baths. Some establishments offered gaming tables, transforming the space into a community center. Prices were affordable, a few cents for a shave, a bit more for a haircut. Simple signs announced the costs, drawing customers. More than aesthetics, these places served as hubs of socialization and even business. Despite the social charm, barbershops hid serious health risks. Rusty razors and uncleaned combs were shared among customers, causing infected cuts and spreading fungi and parasites such as lice and scabies. The term barber's itch even arose to describe skin eruptions. Towels and brushes also passed from face to face, increasing disease risks. In larger cities, it was required to boil instruments in hot water or clean them with alcohol. But in small towns, this practice took time to be adopted. A simple haircut could result in fever or serious infection, showing the precariousness of hygiene in the Wild West. Barbers also acted as improvised dentists. Without anesthesia, they pulled teeth using pliers or adapted tools, while patients bit leather or drank whiskey to endure the pain. Often, the procedure took place in squares or fairs in front of curious onlookers. In addition, barbers made bandages, stitches, and bloodletting, following the medieval tradition of the profession. The risk of infection was huge, with cases of tetanus and fatal fevers. The famous striped barber pole, still a symbol today, directly recalls this hybrid origin where aesthetics and health were intertwined. Bathing was a luxury for few. Water came from wells or rivers and had to be heated on wood stoves, which required great effort. That is why the part bath arose, washing only face, feet, and hands. When there was a full bath, the same tub was used by everyone in the family, first the father, then the mother, and finally the children, quickly leaving the water filthy. In many cases, people went weeks without washing, masking the odor with chewing tobacco, strong perfumes, or dark clothes that hid the dirt. The lack of hygiene spread diseases, but the habit was so normal that few worried about it. With the growth of settlements, bathhouses, or public bathhouses appeared. For a few coins, one could access tubs with heated water, towels, and even soap, though the water was not always changed between customers. Those who paid more guaranteed clean water, while the rest used the same already shared. These places soon became social meeting points, frequented by merchants, travelers, and workers. Bathing was not only about hygiene, but also about status. In luxury brothels, more sophisticated options were offered, with perfumes and foam baths. The lack of options led some to improvise, using horse troughs and cattle tanks to bathe. While practical for those without clean water, this practice worried authorities since contaminated water could spread diseases. In response, some towns created laws prohibiting bathing in troughs, applying fines to those caught. Signs with direct messages like, "Do not bathe in the trough," began to appear in public areas. These measures reveal that even amid improvisation and precariousness, there was concern about protecting collective health and maintaining some social order, something rare in the chaotic frontier environment. Being sheriff in the Wild West did not require great qualifications. In many places, it was enough to be male, over 21, and an American citizen to receive the badge and responsibility of keeping order. The position, seen as a symbol of justice, could suddenly turn a common resident into a lawman. Without formal training or objective criteria, the sheriff was chosen through local elections, political recommendations, or pure necessity, resulting in widely different figures in office. Some were brave and respected, becoming natural leaders of their communities, while others abused power or proved completely unprepared for the violence and challenges of the frontier. Official justice in the Wild West was fragile and often non-existent. Sheriffs had few resources, and jurors were easily bribed or intimidated. To fill this absence, residents formed vigilante committees that hunted criminals on their own. Armed, they carried out summary trials, with no real defense rights, punishing with whippings, expulsions, or even executions. This justice by one's own hand was seen as necessary in isolated regions, where the law was slow to arrive. For many citizens, it was the only way to maintain control and impose respect in territories marked by insecurity and constant violence. One of the most feared groups was the Bald Knobbers in Missouri. They wore dark hoods, with eyes and mouths painted white and horns to create a demonic appearance. They presented themselves as protectors of honest families, but their actions were marked by violence. They rode at night in gangs, punishing thieves, aggressors, and even neighbors who did not follow their moral rules. Their terrifying image helped intimidate entire populations, reinforcing the myth of a supernatural force. However, accusations of abuse and attacks against innocents soon arose, turning them into more of a threat than protectors of order. The Bald Knobbers' meetings were secret, held in forests or isolated cabins. There they defined who should be punished and reinforced loyalty oaths. Mounted on horseback, they spread fear, carrying torches and invading houses to whip or expel enemies. Many residents obeyed the imposed rules out of pure fear of brutal retaliation. For them, official justice was distant, but vigilante justice was always present, imposed by terror. Although they arose to fill the void left by the state, they ended up creating a climate of permanent fear where even innocents could be punished without defense. Mail-order brides emerged as a peculiar solution in the Wild West, where the shortage of women was a serious problem in isolated settlements. Miners, farmers, and lonely settlers sent letters to agencies that connected them with women from other regions, many from the East Coast or even Europe. For them, the arrangement could mean escape from poverty and a new life opportunity. For the men, it guaranteed companionship and family stability. Despite the risks, such as disappointments or abuse, these arrangements helped consolidate communities in frontier areas. Marriage, in this context, ceased to be merely a personal choice and became a true instrument of colonization. The rapid growth of towns turned prostitution into a very common practice. Many poor women, immigrants, and minorities with no other means of survival ended up in the trade. They endured long hours, low pay, violence, and constant risk of sexually transmitted diseases with no medical care. Brothels appeared near churches, offices, and even schools, showing how integrated the practice was to daily life. In some regions, authorities charged taxes and licenses, turning the sex trade into an official source of revenue, essential to sustain communities and finance urban expansion. Despite the stigma, prostitutes were integrated into daily Wild West life. Many were hired to enliven dances and public festivals with guaranteed presence at social events. Brothels displayed workers on balconies to attract customers, a practice seen as normal. At the same time, they were insulted in newspapers, portrayed as symbols of moral decay. They lived, therefore, on the frontier between pleasure and condemnation. This contradiction showed how the Wild West normalized practices that today would be shocking, but at that time were naturalized, sustaining a parallel economy that mixed into the town's daily life. Kid Curry, one of the most feared outlaws, was not marked only by shootouts and robberies, but also by his debauched life in brothels. A frequent visitor, he gained peculiar fame. It is estimated that up to 85 children were called Curry Kids, supposedly born from his encounters with prostitutes. With no reliable contraceptives, illegitimate children were common and rarely acknowledged by fathers. This mix of violence and vice fueled his legendary and chaotic aura, amplifying the myth around his name. For many, Curry embodied the perfect portrait of the Wild West, brutal, untamed, and surrounded by tales of excess that crossed generations. Without official buildings, Wild West justice often took place in improvised saloons. The counter served as the judge's stand and card tables as benches, while jurors could be chosen among the very patrons. Hearings were fast, resolving fights, debts, and land disputes. Fines were paid in coins, gold dust, or even goods, and punishments varied from weapon confiscation to expulsion from town. In some cases, the judge was also the saloon owner, mixing law, business, and entertainment in the same place where the line between authority and personal interest barely existed. When improvised courts lost credibility, communities resorted to radical measures. Vigilante committees organized and carried out summary trials in squares, warehouses, or in front of churches, gathering residents at the sound of a bell or notices nailed to posts. Cattle thieves, stagecoach robbers, and cheaters were the main targets, but innocents were often dragged along. Lynchings became a common practice, revealing how fragile the law was on the frontier. Without solid institutions, justice was based on the mob's shout, collective fear, and rushed decisions without evidence or adequate defense. Public executions were seen as spectacles in the Wild West, gathering crowds to watch hangings in squares or prison yards. Vendors roamed selling food and drink, turning death into morbid entertainment. Many of these executions were the result of flawed trials, sending innocents to the gallows. Minorities suffered harsher penalties, reflecting the inequalities of the time, while whites received lighter sentences. Despite its cruelty, the practice was widely accepted and considered part of social order. It only ceased in public when it began to be seen as a sign of barbarism, shocking even for the standards of the era. Being a bartender in the Wild West was a high-risk occupation marked by constant tension. Saloons were filled with armed, often drunk patrons who did not hesitate to draw a revolver over wrong change or a poorly served drink. Fatal conflicts were so common that some establishments posted signs begging not to shoot the bartender. To survive, many kept shotguns hidden under the counter, ready to react in seconds if things got out of control. Serving a simple glass of whiskey could turn into an unexpected duel, and self-defense was as much a part of the job as mixing drinks. In the Wild West, even offering hospitality meant being prepared to kill. In the Wild West, the card game that truly dominated saloons was not poker, but Pharaoh. From 1820 to 1890, it spread across frontier towns, simple to learn and highly profitable, attracting miners, cowboys, gunfighters, and even sheriffs looking for fast fortune. Casinos ran day and night, with crowded tables and high bets in coins and chips. Almost every saloon in Arizona had at least one Pharaoh table. So strong was the fascination with the game. But its success also opened space for cheating, rigged decks, dishonest dealers, and pistols hidden under tables ready to intimidate any player who dared complain about fraud. Being a gambler at that time was a recognized profession, even recorded in legal documents. In towns like Dodge City and Abilene, a renowned gambler was respected as much as doctors or lawyers, living solely off card winnings. Figures like Doc Holliday became legends not only for gun duels, but also for their coolness and boldness at the gaming tables. The habit was so popular that entire families went to saloons to watch matches as if they were public shows. For many, Pharaoh was not just entertainment, but a lifestyle that defined the risky and glamorous atmosphere of the Wild West. Weapons were an inseparable part of the Wild West, but some towns tried to impose order amid the chaos. In Dodge City, Kansas, the 1879 regulation became famous for requiring any visitor to leave their revolver at the sheriff's office or hotel before walking around. Signs warned right at the entrance, and anyone daring to ignore the rule could be fined or jailed. Sheriffs like Wyatt Earp and Bat Masterson enforced the law, which sought to curb shootouts in saloons crowded with gamblers and bounty hunters. Even well-known gunfighters like Doc Holliday had to comply, proving that locally imposed order spoke louder than personal fame. In Tombstone and many other frontier towns, the law required able-bodied men to always keep a firearm available to serve in local militias. The measure aimed to ensure the community could react quickly to native attacks, robberies, or sudden conflicts in regions where violence was part of daily life. Curiously, at the same time, there were strict rules forbidding carrying weapons inside city limits. Thus, a paradox was created. Citizens were required to own and be ready to use guns, but had to surrender or store them when entering town. This duality reflected the tension between the need for defense and the desire to impose some order. On the prairies of the Wild West, where wood and bricks were scarce, sod houses arose, built with blocks of soil and roots. Improvised, these dwellings had dirt floors that gathered dust, insects, and even snakes, while fragile roofs leaked easily with rain. Natural light barely entered, keeping interiors dark and damp. To control dust, families poured greasy water or food scraps on the floor, but that only attracted more pests, leaving the place unhealthy. Even so, these crude shelters housed thousands of pioneers determined to survive on the frontier, becoming symbols of resilience amid a hostile landscape. In Abilene, Kansas, fun had a curfew. The town banned public dances after midnight. The measure aimed to curb the chaos of bars, where music, alcohol, and crowds quickly degenerated into fights. It was a kind of curfew inspired by the so-called blue laws, common across America, created to impose order and sobriety in places overtaken by excess. The rule also had symbolic weight. Legendary names like Wild Bill Hickok were tasked with enforcing it, reinforcing the message that morality and discipline could not be challenged. Thus, the simple act of dancing after midnight became a matter of law and reputation. Swearing in public was forbidden in Deadwood, and anyone caught offending could receive heavy fines. The rule, which may sound strange given the Wild West's wild reputation, aimed to impose respect and some control in collective spaces. In towns marked by disputes, alcohol, and guns, aggressive language was seen as a spark capable of turning taunts into shootouts. That is why authorities enforced the rule firmly, trying to contain fights still at the word stage. Peace, at least superficially, was maintained through the mouth, while greater threats like ambushes and robberies continued roaming the dusty, dangerous streets, proving silence could be as valuable as a loaded gun. Outhouses were an inevitable part of Wild West life and were almost always built away from houses, erected in simple wood over a hole in the ground. With no plumbing or comfort, they gave off foul odors that attracted flies, insects, and even snakes in certain regions. Since toilet paper did not exist, people improvised with dry leaves, corn cobs, old rags, or newspapers. At night, using them was even riskier, as the lack of lighting increased the chances of accidents or unpleasant encounters. Many preferred buckets indoors to avoid surprises. Despite the discomfort and precariousness, these constructions were indispensable for towns and farms. Diseases such as cholera, tuberculosis, and smallpox ravaged entire communities in the Wild West, seen by many as divine punishments sent to punish sins. With no effective medicine and amid filthy conditions, epidemics spread quickly through contaminated water and lack of hygiene, decimating populations in little time. Religious faith dominated explanations. Sermons blamed immorality and breaking divine laws as the cause of illnesses, while families turned to prayers, healers, or home remedies. In isolated villages, collective death was faced as a spiritual drama, more than a medical issue. The absence of scientific understanding made the pain even deeper. In Evanston, Wyoming, Sundays were marked by strict religious laws that banned the sale of ice cream sodas. The intent was to keep the day of rest free of pleasures considered excessive. The measure, however, directly hit one of the most beloved drinks of the era: soda mixed with ice cream, popular across the country. To avoid losing customers, merchants turned to a clever solution. They began serving only the ice cream, topped with sweet syrups, but without soda. From this loophole, the sundae was born, a dessert that quickly won over customers and spread across the United States. Many believe even its name was an irony aimed at the very law meant to restrict consumption. Child labor was part of the Wild West routine and was seen as essential for family survival. Children helped herd, worked on ranches, and followed long cattle drives, facing cold, extreme heat, and constant dangers. In towns, they were common in cotton fields or small factories, spending the day on heavy tasks without any protection. Schooling was secondary since the priority was to contribute income to the household. Rest was rare, and childhood blended with the weight of work. Despite the harshness, the the practice was normalized, and almost no one questioned the burden placed on such young workers. In towns like Dodge City, local laws banned women from entering bars and saloons unless they worked there. The measure sought to preserve the strict moral standards of the era, since such places were associated with alcohol, gambling, and violence, seen as male-only spaces. This restriction reinforced the rigid gender role division, where female presence in leisure spots was considered a threat to public decency. In practice, only dancers, waitresses, and sex workers were allowed through those doors, while respectable women were pushed into private life. Thus, the law tried to control customs amid the social chaos of the Wild West. Laudanum and other patent medicines were part of daily Wild West life. Sold in pharmacies and saloons, it was a mix of opium and alcohol prescribed for pain, cramps, insomnia, and even restless babies. With no regulation, many products contained high doses of narcotics that created strong dependence. Women were major consumers, since doctors prescribed these formulas for anxiety, hysteria, or nervousness. Bottles with flashy labels became common household items, sold as miracle cures for almost everything. In practice, they hid serious risks, leading many into silent addictions that further weakened health in an already hostile world. On massive cattle drives across Texas and the Great Plains, food depended on the chuck wagon. The cook woke before dawn, lit the fire, and rang the iron triangle to call the men. In the back, drawers stored flour, coffee, beans, bacon, lard, and spices, while iron pots in the Dutch ovens swung hanging. The wagon moved ahead of the herd, unfolding a folding table and heating water. Besides cooking, the cook acted as an improvised doctor, fixed saddles, and even settled disputes at camp. It was a vital role for the survival of the crew. When cattle or hunting ran out, the rule was to eat whatever was available. Squirrels, rabbits, and opossums went into the pot after removing the scent glands. No part of the animal was wasted. Tongues, innards, heads, and even bull testicles turned into so-called mountain oysters. The daily menu included thick beans, biscuit bread baked in iron ovens, and bitter coffee, often reused from the day before. Fat also played a central role, used both to cook and to preserve. Food was simple, heavy, and molded by the road, ensuring energy to endure the exhausting pace of the drives. Cash was scarce and unreliable, making barter the basis of the economy. Eggs could be exchanged for revolver bullets, tobacco for fabric, and even a simple haircut served as payment. Stores accepted goods instead of coins, while handwritten notes circulated as improvised bills. Professionals such as doctors, blacksmiths, and lawyers often received food, animals, or tools instead of salaries. Unstable banks, fluctuating prices, and distance between communities reinforced this practice. To survive on the frontier, one had to negotiate creatively, offering something of immediate value to secure the next day. The term snake oil salesman arose in the Wild West, associated with peddlers who roamed towns promising miracle cures for pain, fevers, and even baldness. The formulas were almost always dubious mixes of mineral oil, turpentine, and occasionally traces of snake oil, advertised as exotic and powerful. These charlatans staged theatrical presentations, used forged testimonials, and fled quickly before being exposed. Crowds, fascinated by the show, bought expensive bottles that rarely had any real effect. Although some ingredients could relieve symptoms, most were fraudulent, and so snake oil became a synonym for deception and exploitation, marking the popular culture of the time. Cattle rustling was such a common practice that it nearly became part of the economic system. Thieves identified cattle, altered branding irons, or simply mixed herds to disguise origin. In many places, taking another rancher's cattle was seen as part of the game, though it often ended in shootouts and lynchings. Since cattle symbolized wealth and power, protecting it was vital, but the vast open ranges made control difficult, favoring thieves. For some, it was a shortcut to riches. For others, the loss could ruin entire families. In the end, every stolen steer meant more than meat or hide. It was a direct dispute for territory and survival. In Tombstone, mustaches were viewed with such suspicion that some churches even banned men with facial hair from attending services. For religious leaders of the time, the mustache had become a symbol of gamblers, drunks, and outlaws, figures common in rapidly growing mining towns. Short beards were still tolerated, but thick mustaches were associated with vice, disorder, and misconduct. This strange rule sought to preserve morality and impose respect, especially with the constant arrival of adventurers and newcomers in search of fortune. The simple detail of a facial hairstyle could define a man's reputation and even his social acceptance. Despite its fame as a land of opportunity, the Wild West was also a scene of exclusion and prejudice. Native peoples were forcibly removed from their lands, confined to reservations, and treated as enemies of progress. African Americans, even after abolition, received only heavy, low-paid jobs, often under threat and violence. Latinos were seen as foreigners in regions that historically belonged to their communities, suffering daily discrimination. Chinese immigrants, essential in building the railroads, faced persecution, violence, and laws restricting their presence. The dream of freedom coexisted with practices of structural racism and social exclusion. The buffalo was the foundation of native life, providing food, shelter, clothing, and tools. Realizing this, the U.S. Army encouraged mass hunting as a strategy to weaken tribes. Once abundant, with herds of up to 30 million crossing the plains, in just a few decades, fewer than 1,000 remained. Hides and bones became lucrative trade, but the impact was devastating. The slaughter not only destroyed natural balance, but also broke native cultural and economic foundations. Figures like Buffalo Bill Cody intensified the massacre, killing thousands of bison in 2 years to supply railroad companies, turning the sacred animal into mere merchandise.